what has just occurred in the last week, and that is the end of an era, is what it actually is. And wanted to see where we're at here. I'm still working through some things, so if you don't bear in mind while I'm still struggling to get this going, I'm gonna give a little time for everyone to check back in. Now that we got everything hooked up, get my lights on here. There we go. So we're lit up a little bit better, and go from there. So I'll give a little time here for folks to trickle back in. Okay, we got 2 people in the room now. I wanted to get on early here for the, especially here for the West Coast. It is a little after 4:40 something in the a.m. And there we go, Dusty. How's it sound now? Before the regulars start getting on, I know Paul Murray will be on around 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 a.m. East Coast time. So I wanted to squeeze this little bit of information in to put out there. So I hope those are coming back. Still some mic feedback. It may be ticking. Let me take that out. Just some mic feedback, ticking sound, but I can hear you. Well, I'm glad you can at least hear me. I don't know where the ticking's coming from because I don't have a headset. Because this little low budget mixer box, and compared to the YOLO, there's a delay. And yeah, you probably heard the feedback probably come from my headset. And there's a delay, and that it confuses me when I'm listening. So when I start having guests, hopefully here soon, I'll have to train myself to be able to listen and respond with a slight delay and everything else. But yeah, we're all good. Thank you very much. Hope we'll get a few more folks to come back in like we started before. Once again, I apologize to everyone. Like I say, technical difficulties. Like I said, I don't use this gear every day or every week, so it goes from month to month. Updates happen, other things happen. This gear itself, a difference in the gear overall. So we're going to continue on, okay? And by continuing on, we're going to go with what I missed the other week. Let me make sure I got all my sound equipment lined up. USB 1, 2, not USB. Video. There's no use having sponsors if you can't put them out there the way you want to. So we're going to go with our first sponsor, which we'll talk about them early on, is to get some of that, information out of the way. But I rely upon this information, which is going to show some real truth. We say speak truth to power overall. And we're going to go with some air data for you right quick.
When your flight data matters.
All right. Hey, how we doing, Adrian? No, I didn't. I'm up this morning. It's going to be 100 degrees today here in Southern California. So, you know how it is. It starts warming up a little bit at night. So once it started getting a little warm air, I decided to go ahead and get up out the bed. This is normally I'm up this time in the morning during the week when I go to work, so it's not unusual. So we're here we are. So I was starting again, and I put out a little trailer last night about the end of service from DJI from the Phantom for the Phantom 4 Pro. And what that truly means is that DJI will no longer supply or offer any updates. Not that they've done anything in a while for that platform, as far as you know, software updates. But we're also talking about even possibly repairs. You may have to go to a private repair service to get a Phantom 4 Pro repaired if it is damaged. So that's a significant thing. That means parts are going to start becoming more scarce. You will have to rely upon third-party parts, just like we rely upon third-party batteries. Those of us who still own them, those of us who still fly them. I still have a couple myself that I keep around. I have the Phantom 4 RTK, which is still a very useful drone for the work I do with photogrammetry and mapping. It was one of the first drones that's not the first, but it was at that bridge of consumer and prosumer level drones with RTK. So that added a much needed value for those of us like myself who were coming to the commercial side of things and didn't want to spend the money on, back then was a Matrice 210 or some of the other older drones at that time. And like I say, RTK was not built into any drone prior to that. It was a add-on module that you had to buy separately. The Phantom 4 RTK had it all going in at one time. So that was kind of plus. Then you had the base station, which I have to go with it. So I was able to really dip my toe into RTK work, going with that. But let's keep pushing on. Like I say, there were several series to the Phantom 4 itself. Started off with the regular, which I call the upgrade from the Phantom 3 series, which was the original standard Phantom 4. Didn't have the Pro added to it. It was just a bigger, more compact design than the Phantom 3 series, which had the undercarriage underneath, stabilization set up underneath the drone. With the Phantom 3s, the Phantom 4 put everything inside of the casing itself, gave it a more compact, less cumbersome, less intimidating look. When the Phantom 4 Pro series came out some, I guess almost 7, 8 years ago now, which in drone terms is a whole generation difference. When you talk about flyers, a lot of people that may view this video may have never owned a Phantom 4 Pro, never seen one, or like I say, I always tell people to really know the difference and how drones have come from one level to the next level. You need to fly a Phantom. I don't care if it's the 3, because it has some nice characteristics on it. You're talking about a drone with no sensors and that kind of stuff. The Phantom 3 series gives you that feeling. There is no top, only the bottom sensors exist on the Phantom 3 series itself. So if you get an opportunity, you can pick up a Phantom 4 Pro for under $1,000 easily. Don't be as nervous as in the earlier years, just a few years ago, as far as third-party batteries. They are plentiful to buy at a very reasonable cost on Amazon. I would stay away from those who sell them on eBay unless it's a trusted seller you've done business with before, because you never know what you're going to get when you buy a battery on eBay from someone Especially they tell you, it's an original DJI battery. It could have been sitting on somebody's shelf for 5 plus 8 years, and you'll get it and it'll be dead as a doornail. So if you're gonna buy a battery for one of these, hey, DJ Lee, Mr. Lee, how you doing? And my good buddy Adrian. So like I say, don't be too excited trying to purchase a DJI original battery for this drone or any old drone original battery. It could have been sitting on a shelf, and the person's going to sit there and say, well, it's brand new in the box. But we all know, even some of us, we hear the stories all the time in forums and Facebook and other places. People say, well, I just stored my drone over the winter and now the battery won't charge. And that's just storing at your house. So just imagine with something that's been sitting on a shelf somewhere, or somebody picked up a couple batteries off of a estate sale and never tested them or anything else, and they're selling them online on eBay and other places as original. So you will have to be buying a third-party battery, which I have had to buy them because I have continued to use my Phantoms up until last year. Matter of fact, I mean, actually this year. I stopped using them this year because I had sites that the Phantom 4 RTK just worked better than my Mavic 3Es that I have. So like I said, there's always a use for them. It is a wonderful drone to fly, especially for cinematic work. If you're trying to get something cinematic, try out flying a Phantom 4 Pro. You'll never be disappointed. But we're going to move on here, and I'm going to explain some things about this drone. I hear people talk about, oh, it's old tech and everything else. And sometimes when you're dealing with people, or as I always say, no matter what the subject is, you have to deal with the facts. Okay? I'm a person who deals with the facts. And that way, if we know what the facts are, then we can debate what's good and what's bad. I can't debate you on how you feel about something, because that's a feeling. That's a personal something inside of you, how you feel about it. So no matter what I may say or whatever, if you want to dig your heels in because of how you feel, that's just simply how you feel. And there's nothing I can do about that at all. Okay? So what I'm going to do is right now, I'm going to bring up the specs of the Phantom 4 here on my computer. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you can see it. Okay? Let's zoom this in a little bit. I hope everyone can see it, because I can't see you. We're going to scroll up here. This is the Phantom 4 Pro specs. Generic one here, V1, V2 version. The specs are pretty much identical. Now, there's one thing I can say right off the top of my head is that, let me do something real quick here so you guys can still see me and I can see you. Let me see here, said the blind man. Okay, we're going to put that as 1, and we're going to put me as 2. And we're going to shrink me down. I don't like that setup. We'll go change setup to something else. Split view. There we go. And let me see how that gives a little more room. Okay, we're done there. There we go. Now, I hope you guys can see that there for the most part. And this is the specs. Now, the Phantom 4 Pro, I would call it a, I wouldn't call it heavyweight, but I would say it's we call a light heavyweight drone. Comes in just at around 3 pounds, maybe a little bit more. 1,388 grams. So it's a drone. It's a good sized drone. Very good in the wind. Sometimes this thing looks like it's about to tilt over, but it keeps flying overall. Now these are things I want you to look at, because we're going to talk about current generation drones. Max ascent speed, 6 meters per second. That's in standard mode. Going from there, max descent speed, 4 meters per second. Max speed, 45 miles per hour. Remember that one, 45 miles per hour. Okay. If you got it in the regular mode, this is basically cruising mode. That's an S is mean for it's for the fast mode, speed mode. The P is normal. We call it camera filming mode. And then the A, for those who don't know what A is, that's for the ADI mode. Okay. Even in P mode, it gets around 31 miles per hour. That's what most of us use it for. A lot of folks like clicking over to the fast mode or the speed mode in 45. Okay. Tilt angle, that was important back then at the max tilt angle. And like I tell folks, once you exceed 45 degrees in a drone, it's coming down. So you fly in high winds and your drone is tilting over. Once it reaches the 45 degree angle, it is basically going to be coming down after that point. And you see this one can go all the way up to 42 degrees tilt angle from there. All right. Next big thing, speed resistant, 10 meters per second, which this thing can basically carry winds in regular miles per hour. Somewhere in the area close to, I think it's about 28 miles per hour, what that translates to. Max flight time, 30 minutes. And we'll talk about flight time down the road on this drone and current models that are out there. Operating temperature, 32 degrees to 104 degrees. That's standard for most drones from DJI. And I would say back then, you had to adhere to those numbers. For you guys over in Europe, 0 degrees to 40 degrees, what we're talking about. Satellites, GPS, and GLONASS were the two systems that it worked off of. And that's what we talk about, knowing how many satellites you had when you took off and keeping an eye on your satellites and stuff, because back then you only had two systems that it was working off of. So if you were just firing a drone up and taking off and you had less than 10 satellites, risky business. And this is the reason why it is not pulled in three or four different sets of satellites. It only worked off 2. All right. This is for your sensors, forward, backwards, downward sensors. We'll go down here a little more. Let me see. Camera, 1 inch CMOS, 20 megapixels. Okay, remember that right there. That 1 inch, 20 megapixels. Okay. To get into all the ISO ranges, 132, 164 manual mode. Remember that manual mode. A lot of your newer drones don't let you play with that. Okay. And this is the real kicker, which made this drone one of the best drones ever made to date. Mechanical shutter. Okay. Anywhere from that right there, the speed of the shutter for its time was excellent. And this is what made this drone special. You could switch it from mechanical shutter to electronic shutter in the settings. And that allowed it to do just about any kind of work that you needed this drone to do. And look at the aspect ratio sizes of those images. Remember these numbers, 5472 by 3648. 4:3, pretty much the same close range. 16 by 9, pretty much the same. A little bit different lack on the width. Going from there, it tells you all the different frames per second. It shot H.265 and H.264, depending upon what you wanted. Recording modes, and look at these numbers here. At the highest level, 100 megabytes per second. And it varies from there based upon what your settings are. Now, the highest level, it gives you 100 megabytes per second. And as you reduced it down to full HD, HD, it will slow down to adjust the picture settings for the frames per second. Okay, and the same thing, H.264, it varies depending upon what your settings are there. So like I said, this drone was very flexible. Max bit rate was 100 megabits per second. It used the old FAT32 fouling range, and this is why, is one of the reasons why I tell people don't share SD cards, because some drones have a different memory setup. The older drones pretty much all were FAT32s. The newer drones use the EX FAT32, which is a different format, and how your videos and pictures get saved. So that is something you have to be thinking about if you swap out SD cards amongst drones, or if you have multiple drones itself. Photo, JPEG and RAW. Not individually. You can't have it set individually, or you can have it set to do both at the same time. A lot of newer drones today, a lot of them don't even have RAW, let alone be able to shoot JPEG and RAW at the same time. Okay. Max capacity for the SD card, 128 gigs. Which was something that I have yet to fill up, but I've come close. When you're taking hundreds of acres of in a photogrammetry work, you're talking about thousands of pictures. So you can start adding up. But I never maxed out a card. So people always talking about, oh, I need a 256. I said, I don't know what you're filming. What blockbuster Hollywood video that you're trying to put together. But very rarely, unless you're shooting for multiple days, every day during a month, will you come back and this card will get full. Like most folks, you shoot, you come back, you download, go back and shoot again. That's usually good standard practice right there. Okay? And it goes on for a couple of stuff. Now, I gave you this information here, and now we're going to skip over to the most current model that's available, everybody, the Mavic 3 Pro. Okay? This is 3 generations later. I actually could say more. Okay? The Mavic 3 Pro. This is what we're looking at now. We'll get to the top here. Straight off DJI site, because they don't even have the specs for the Phantom 4 Pro on their sites. That's why I said they stopped doing support. All this information is gone. You got to find information elsewhere. The Pro, much lighter, 958 compared to the 1388 of the Phantom. It's smaller in size. Remember that max speed for the Phantom? This one's only 8 meters per second. Max descent speed. Let's go back and look at it again. Descent speed, 6. Okay. Max flight time. Laboratory test, 43 minutes. And like I said, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Hover time, 37 minutes. Then I guess they didn't do hover times back when the Phantom came out. They just said 30 minutes. Okay. Wind speed resistance, 12 milliseconds. What was the Phantom again? 10 meters per second. I'm sorry. And this one is only 12. Not bad for a drone that's 3 generations older. Okay. GPS, when we talked about GPS systems, now this one has GPS, Galileo, and Beidou, which is the French system. Okay, remember the Phantom worked off 2, but the one they're not working off is the standard US system. The Galileo and the Beidou are foreign systems. So I don't know why the GNSS system itself, which could be encompassed in general GPS together. So it could just be these wrapped up, 2 of them together. Okay. Internal storage, the Mavic 3 has on it. The Phantom never had internal storage. Now let's get out here to the cameras. Okay. Obviously we have a 4/3 sensor on the Mavic 3 Pro compared to the 1-inch sensor on the Phantom. 20 megabyte, not 20 megabytes, I was like 20 megapixels, I'm sorry, megapixels on the main camera. Then you have the other 2 cameras that have different levels, 48 on the telly, on the medium telly, and then 12 on this one. But you see the sensors are smaller. The Phantom never came with additional cameras. This is just the main camera right here. So 20 megapixels, pretty much tie. Okay. ISO range gets bumped up to 64 on that. It was, I think it was 32 on the Phantom. Not bad. Now, Hasselblad camera, 1 over 8,000. What was the one on the Phantom? You go down here, camera, 2,000. And that's going to be a discussion we're going to talk about later about the difference. Now here, electronic speed, identical. But once again, the Mavic 3 Pro doesn't have a mechanical shutter. The Phantom 4 Pro does. Electronic shutter, it's identical. All right. So let's continue on the list here. All these different both burst modes and everything else. And then we get down here, you can buy the Mavic 3 Pro Cine that gives you Apple ProRes. Once again, you get H.264, H.265, just as the Phantom 4 Pro does. Okay. And the video bit rate, much higher, almost double, 200 megabits per second, H.264, H.265. So you get a real advantage there. Okay. So, with all that said and done, let's scroll back here. So right there, if you're just starting out, getting into drones, well, I don't know what the price of a Mavic 3 Pro is. A couple $1,000. Depends on the package you get. Can't approach a little bit over $3,000. You're talking about getting the Cine mode. But overall, you have to look at it. A lot of folks say, well, they don't want to spend the money. That's why a lot of folks go out and buy some of the cheap drones they find on Amazon, Walmart, and Target, whatever else. And I always tell folks, if you really want a good drone that can do just about anything and everything that the more expensive drones that you get, find a used Phantom 4 Pro. I tell people all the time, it's much better than any mini drone you have out there. And it's always going to go back to portability. And it all depends what your attitude is about flying drones in general. And if you're one of those people who just want to pull over the side of the road at a drop of a pin and say, hey, I want to go fly here and whip out my drone. But what I see is that a vast majority of, I would say, more serious hobbyists, and especially all of us commercial operators, what do? We buy a small folding drone, talk about how portable it is, but we turn around and buy a hard case for it. And then it's no longer portable that you can put in your pocket or put in your backpack anymore, because that's what consumers thought they wanted. DJI and other manufacturers gave you what you thought you wanted, and going back is to the Mavic Pro, the Mavic 2 Pro, and every drone since then has gave you the so-called, I call them man purses, and most people didn't like them. They didn't give you the functionality that you wanted, like a hard case does, as far as keeping things organized, keeping things separated, keeping things protected, like a hard case does. And most of those bags are either been put in the trash or sit up in somebody's closet in a box still, and we don't use it. And that's what makes me laugh, because the main reason everybody jumped on the portable drones was the simple fact of, oh, I can just carry this around on my hip. I can just throw this in the back seat. I can stuff this wherever. And like I say, drones is a very sensitive, delicate piece of equipment, or parts of it is. And we all know about gimbal situations, and we know about how props can get damaged. 9 times out of 10, we get prop damage from us taking drones in and out of our carriers than we do hitting something in the air. You know, because we can sit back and talk about, well, how did I get this hairline crack in my prop? I haven't hit anything, but simply taking it out of that cut out styrofoam, because it's made just to fit perfectly. And if you throw it back in there and you don't fold the props properly, whatever, it gets caught on the side. And if you're not paying attention, if you flex it, you keep doing that over time, the torque of the drone itself and the motors and everything else, you start to get stress line cracks in your stuff. And that's why I always tell people, part of your pre-flight, right before you're about to fly, do the finger test on your props. Each prop, just run your fingers along it. Your fingers are probably the most sensitive thing that can tell a nick or a hairline fracture than actually your eyes looking at it. Because sometimes our eyes, depending on how old you are, like me, don't catch it. You know, can't focus on a little tiny thing. So doing the finger test is proven to be one of the most accurate measuring devices you can use to see if your props are in good working order. So, like I said, we thought we wanted something for portability factor, and we all go back and buy hard cases. So there you go. That's what makes me giggle when I see people talk about all these cases they're getting from different manufacturers. And I said, well, I thought you wanted a little bag to carry on your hip. You got to whip it out, put it over the side of the road, throw it in the air, wave your hands like you just don't care. I hear you, Dusty. Those things happen. Those things happen. To move on a little further. Now, we talked about battery life. Okay. Like I said, I've used Phantoms. I got started with Phantoms. And like everybody else, I started from a business aspect. I never was a hobbyist. Like I say, I bought my first drone, I want to say 3 months prior to me taking the Part 107 test. And that part right there was simply to me to get hands-on experience and feel for how a drone flies. So it allowed me to understand the material I was studying for the test. And I tell a lot of people, I said, it's good to have a drone to be able to fly while you're studying for the test. Like I said, it's practical application. There are certain theories and standards that are set forth they talk about on the Part 107 test that unless you're flying a drone, you don't really grasp the concept of what it's trying to teach you. That's why I talk about that 45-degree angle. That's on the Part 107 test. Okay, actually flying a drone in speed mode, you get a sense of why that happens. Okay, you're out there speed mode, you're out there flying in some maybe about 15 mile per hour wind, and the tailwind will push you over quicker than anything else. It's not so much the headwind. That's a factor as far as how fast the drone's going to go, that type of thing. But a tailwind can cause that drone, because you're flying at the max speed, and that tailwind is pushing it even further than beyond the max speed. You can find yourself flipping a drone before you know it. And this can occur especially for FPV pilots, where the drone flies at an extreme angle, like we call attack angle, which is another term you will see on a Part 107 test, is attack angle. And like I say, lucky for FPVs, they are designed to be able to withstand a flip. So, like I say, with a regular camera drone, as we call them now, they're not designed to operate beyond that angle, because the motors automatically shut off when you turn it upside down, or they used to do that. Some folks have found some extreme situations where they have gotten their arms cut up pretty bad from drones that have flipped over on them. I think there was a viral video of some gentleman in a foreign country trying to hand catch or whatever a Phantom, and didn't secure it very well in his hands, and the drone flipped over and chopped up his forearms pretty much I should say. But let's go on. All right, so let's talk about this time. Okay, like I said, I've been fortunate enough to have jobs that have lasted me a couple years. Okay, I'm gonna show you two jobs, one from I think it's 2023, and another one from 2024. This first one from 2023, let me bring it up here. This is with Air Data, and this is with a Phantom 4 Pro. And I take off, you see here, 98% battery, landing at 18%. So I probably had to return to home, hit it somewhere around 30%, probably around I would say between 27 and 30%. And that's standard for me, because you always got to put into the fact of how much battery gets used when you take off, and you always want to make sure you got plenty enough battery to return home. You don't want to be having to do that walk of shame because your drone went down, because you're trying to fly it down to 10% and it can't make it back to where you're at because you got it so far out. So the things we're looking at here, you can see the map right there and the distance that was covered. Okay, now look at the time. Spent 20 minutes 37 seconds in the air. Okay, right there, that's with a Phantom 4 Pro. I was using Drone Deploy on an Apple tablet, yada yada yada. Now I'm going to show you a Mavic 3E and the difference. The first thing you're going to say is, wow, that thing took a lot of, did the whole job pretty much. Yeah, it took about one battery and about one bar or a second battery to finish that job right there with the Mavic 3E. Now, look at the time right here. The drone was in the air 28 minutes, 0 seconds. Okay, 8-minute difference. Now you can tell that the Phantom still, with 8 more minutes, wasn't going to finish the job. And that's not at the fault of the drone. It was the fault of the camera. The biggest difference between the Mavic 3E and the Phantom 4 Pro is not in speed, because they both fly pretty much the same maximum speed. The Phantom flies at 45 miles per hour max. I believe the Mavic 3 flies somewhere around 48. So it's not a big difference in speed, but it's the camera. And it's something I used to tell people all the time, is sometimes you can outfly a camera. And this is not just drone cameras. I'm talking about cameras on the ground, whatever. Captain Joe can tell you he shoots sports activities. You whip that camera around too fast, the camera can't keep up with the speed of your motion. It needs to be able to be in a certain position to catch action. Okay? And that's the difference here is that here, you see over here, I'm flying at 33 miles per hour. And that's not just the max speed of it returning home. That's where you usually get your max speed at, returning home. But as you go back to the Phantom, okay, flying home it did 22, but during the actual flight, I had to limit it down to 10 miles per hour because if I flew any faster, the pictures would be slightly blurred. So that's the difference of when doing photogrammetry or mapping work is knowing how fast your camera can handle the speed of what it's taking a picture of. And that's the difference, the main difference. It had anything to do with the technology, I would say, of the speed of the drone, because max speed, they're about the same. Okay? Time in the air, there's 8 minutes difference, but 8 more minutes was only going to give me about another run down and back compared to the other one. The quality of the picture, both of them spitting out 20 megapixels. One camera does it at 4/3, the other one did it at a 1 inch. Both 20 megapixel cameras. And this what was the difference for me is moving up from a Phantom was the ability of the camera to fly, be able to take accurate pictures at a higher rate of speed, which means less time. And you guys hear this all the time. I talk about time is money. So with the Phantom on this job, I think it tell me how many the distance. He's telling me acres somewhere. I have to look it up. How many acres it flew. I think this job here is somewhere just over 100 acres. This job is right here. Instead of me using, it used to take me three to four batteries, 3 with a little bit of the 4 batteries to do this with a Phantom. I can do this job now with about 1 and 1 bar with a Mavic 3. Less time because I'm flying faster because the camera can handle the speed of the drone much better than other ones. The quality of the picture, identical. Same company, same site. I did this site for roughly almost 5 years. So I was able to transition from one to the other and be able to show folks that there's not a big difference as far as how long that drone can stay up. It's basically in the mechanics of the camera itself. Now the Mavic 3E does have a mechanical shutter on it, so that makes it more of an even match on that overall. So I can compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges when it comes to that factor, and that's why I tell a lot of people it is best to get a used Phantom 4 Pro because it gives you the quality and the quality level that you need to do good work in the field. I keep hearing people talking about they're using a Mavic 3 to do mapping work, and I'm like, yeah. My thing is, if the client you're working for allows that, it's on the client. Okay, he's allowing you to use subpar equipment to get professional results. And you know, just what I said, that doesn't add up. Doesn't add up at all. Okay? So that's why I tell people, they talk about what's the best good drone to start off getting a drone business. I say find you a used Phantom 4 Pro. It is a great drone. It will allow you to do everything you want to do as a hobbyist. It is a great drone to start you off in doing work. Once you get your Part 107, it gives you high quality pictures for real estate. It allows you to dip into photogrammetry work with high level pictures, and with that mechanical shutter, you get the accuracy with that, with no rolling shutter like most of the other drones have. I'm talking about everything from a Mavic 2 Pro, all the even the Mavic 3, the consumer Mavic 3. It has electronic shutter. It's a rolling shutter. It's not till you get to the 5,000, 3,000, 4,000 level of the Mavic 3 Enterprise level. You spend that kind of money, you get back to a mechanical shutter again. And like I said, I was able to get my hands on a used Phantom 4 RTK. I bought it from Adorama a couple years back, $2,500, which was a deal back then. Standard price for a Phantom 4K was somewhere close to $5,000, brand new. And if you bought the whole complete kit, I kind of pieced mine together from a couple of used buys. It was standard about $8,000 if you bought the base station. So there's a lot of ways to get into this market, but you just gotta be a little savvy. I always tell people, if you take the shortcut, buying lesser gear, you're not gonna get the work that you think you want to get. And a lot of guys have told me, well, I've gotten work with my Mavic 3. I said, well, bless your heart. And I said, that's on the client. Because when you're dealing with engineers, you're dealing with surveyors, and the work that you do is being brought before people like that, they're just going to shake their head and say, this is useless. Because one, the metadata that is in those pictures won't be in those pictures. For the simple fact, when you fly a drone that does not have RTK capabilities, the metadata is not there. And that's what engineers, surveyors, and people like that work off, is the metadata. They can't do corrections off of your stuff just because you have RTK. And this is why I'm not a big fan of N-Trip, because it's not consistent with any system. Is because there are variances in the distance from the base station when you use N-Trip that have to be calculated into. When you have your own numbers, less of a calculation and stuff. Shameless plug for Northeast Drone Meetup. There we go. I think that's come up. Oh, that's September? Good deal. Well, thank you for that, Steve. We'll do that shameless plug. I'll say it again. Those of you who live in the Northeast, I used to live in the Northeast a long time ago. I didn't live there. I was stationed there, I should say, in New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, back in 1984 through 86, the summer of 86. When I got there in 1984, it had an Indian summer, they call it, which means they had an extended summer that went all the way into the early weeks of October. Very beautiful area. It reminds you of one of those 1,000-piece puzzles that you can buy and spend 2 days trying to put together. So had a couple of good years up there, but the winters are just too long. So on that note, we're going to bring up my next sponsor, and I'll be right back with you.
The best. You have to train with the best. Pilot Institute.
All right. That is with Pilot Institute. They're one of my newest sponsors for my show. So we want to make sure we give them their time. And I truly believe in the words of that ad is that, you know, if you want to be one of the best, you got to train with the best. You got to become one of the best. Okay? And that's paramount. You know, like I said before, if you want to buy subpar gear, you're going to get subpar results. And that is the same thing with your training. You know, the only way you get better is you train with better people. Pilot Institute stands behind their product, stand behind what they can deliver. And that's what I like about them. I had a good opportunity to speak with those gentlemen at the Las Vegas meetup last year. I put it like this: my wife has nothing to do with drones. at all. Her main thing is, as long as I keep making money with it, she don't worry about how much money I spend on it. So that's pretty much our agreement. But she was impressed herself with Greg and his staff and the things they had to say about their business, the things they said about Prescott, Arizona. Even my wife is a little less resistant that maybe we may retire to Flagstaff area, which is just north of. I say it's a I say Prescott. They say Prescott or whatever the case may be. Prescott. That's the word they use. Prescott is what they where they're at. And so I can give Greg and his people a tip of the cap for their efforts in selling my wife on the possibility of retiring in the northern Arizona territory for the most part. But getting back where we're at, yeah, the Northeast drone meetup coming up this September, the 5th through the 7th in Providence, Rhode Island. I never had an opportunity to go through Rhode Island myself. I drove through, like I said, I was stationed in New Hampshire. I drove down through Massachusetts, which is obvious because the closest airport is in Boston, in that area, the Logan Airport. So I took my wife down to see her extended family. To Philly, we drove down from New Hampshire on Mother's Day weekend, which is this week, like weekend like this one. And I took her down to Philadelphia to visit some of her extended family there. I think it was the first year we were there. I think it was the next after the snow finally thawed. So so that was my adventure through the New England area. I can say very pretty, very historic area. If you want to, like I say again, how flying a drone itself can help you understand the Part 107 test. There you go. Living in places like New England gives you opportunity to understand colonial history here in America, because you're driving right past these historical sites that you read about growing up in school. Like I said, I grew up pretty much in California, so it's just places and titles and dates. But what I got a chance to experience, it gives you a different feel when you see these locations of a lot of history of our country, where it's at, and everything else. So I encourage you always, whenever you do travel, try to go see some of the history. Same thing, I encourage everyone to, if you get the opportunity, especially if you live out west, take the time to go out to Washington, D.C. Go see Washington, D.C. Go see those monuments, the Jefferson, the Lincoln, go see some of the museums, the Smithsonian's, go see the World War II Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, the Marine Corps Memorial. Go by Arlington Cemetery. See the stuff. I mean, it makes, I know to me, it makes a bigger impact than seeing it on the news, seeing it in movie scenes, this kind of stuff, when you're standing there looking at it in your own eyes. So I encourage you to, when you do get the opportunity to travel, go visit places that you just learned about in books. See it for yourself. America is a unique country. We are not just a one-stop shop location. We have a variety of things. If you like the great outdoors, come out west. Go to Colorado, Montana, the Dakotas, Idaho, places like that, the Grand Canyon, those type of places. See it for yourself. It's awesome. Okay. Well, I know I ran my mouth quite a bit today. We got all our advertisements in today. Talked about a lot of things today. But I wanted to put this out about the Phantom 4 Pro. And the Phantom 4 Pro is probably, in my opinion, probably the best drone ever made, because it suit the needs for hobbyists and for commercial operators, even still to this day. I still own two of them. I have a V2, which I just recently purchased in the last week to continue and to replace some of my V1s. which I am donating to my local PD for training. You know, just like I said, it's like we go out and fly for training. First responders need that same thing. They don't get money. They don't get extra money to buy training stuff. So a lot of times they rely upon donations for training. I mean, a lot of these officers who are asked to become pilots, they need training. They need hours of training, not just sit there and read a book and learn from there. They need hands-on, just like we do, hands-on flight time to really become comfortable with flying a drone. And I always tell people, if you can fly a Phantom, you can fly anything. The Phantom is something that is unique in its flying capabilities and how it responds. If you will learn to fly just about any drone that's been made if you can fly Phantom. Your learning curve will be reduced significantly if you learn to fly a Phantom and then learn to fly something else, because then you know what to expect. But that's what I'm doing with my drones. Like I say, the V1s are not remote ID compatible. The version 2 is remote ID compatible. Now that they're in the support, you're going to have to find somewhere, someplace that is storing that last update, that updated the V2 version to activate the remote ID module that is built inside of the Phantom 4 Pro V2. Like I say, the DJI has pretty much wiped their site clean of any information for the Phantoms now. So you'll be hard pressed to find anything there. So you may have to go other places to find all your updates, including make sure that you update your controller to the latest version, the 4 point something 6.6 is the latest version for controllers, to make sure your drone is flying with the best current firmware that is out there. So that's my biggest thing out there. Like I always say, hang on, enjoy the ride. Life is short, but please, if you fly, fly by the rules, because when you fly with all of us. So when you mess up, you have messed up for all of us. When you do great, you do great for all of us. And that's why I really strive about the rules and regulations, and knowing the rules and regulations in your area. Every state, every county is not the same of where you may live. So educate yourself, have all your information with you, either physically or on your phone. So if you're approached by someone, especially law enforcement or anyone of a federal level, or especially if you're flying over private property, which is becoming very sticky of late, that you show that you have your trust test. If you're a hobbyist, you have your Part 107, there, and they may feel a little more comfortable knowing that you know the rules and so forth. So, like I said again, have fun, be safe. I will see you guys again. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.